Good morning, folks, and welcome back to another Bible Coffee. My name is Travis. It is wonderful to have you all here once again as we dig into these ancient stories in the scriptures. Today we're on Genesis chapter 46, so I'd like to invite you to join me as we jump right in. Please remember that I'll be reading from the column on the right, the JPS Tanakh Translation. The column on the left is the NRSV. You're invited to follow along on either side or in your Bibles at home, or just listen as we read. So Israel set out with all that was his, and he came to Beersheba, where he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. God called to Israel in a vision by night, "Jacob, Jacob." He answered, "Here." And he said, "I am God, the God of your father. Fear not to go down to Egypt, for I will make you there into a great nation. I myself will go down with you to Egypt, and I myself will also bring you back. And Joseph's hand shall close your eyes." So Jacob sent out from Beersheba. The sons of Israel put their father Jacob and their children and their wives in the wagons that Pharaoh had sent to transport him. And they took along their livestock and the wealth that they had amassed in the land of Canaan. Thus Jacob and all his offspring with him came to Egypt. He brought with him to Egypt his sons and grandsons, his daughters and granddaughters, all his offspring. These are the names of the Israelites, Jacob and his descendants who came to Egypt. Jacob's firstborn Reuben, Reuben's sons Enoch, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. Simeon's sons Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, and Saul, the son of a Canaanite woman. Levi's sons Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Judah's sons Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah. But and Onan had died in the land of Canaan, and Perez's sons were Hezron and Hamul. Issachar's sons Tola, Puvah, Iob, and Shimron. Zebulun's sons Sered, Elon, and Jaleel. Those were the sons whom Leah bore to Jacob in Padan Aram, in addition to his daughter Dinah. Persons in all, male and female, 33. Gad's sons, Ziphion, Haggai, Shuni, Esbon, Eri, Arodi, and Areli. Asher's sons, Imnah, Ishva, Ishvi, and Beriah, and their sister Sarah. Beriah's sons, Heber and Malchiel. These were the descendants of Zilpah, whom Laban had given to his daughter Leah. These she bore to Jacob, 16 persons. The sons of Jacob's wife Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. To Benjamin were born in the land of Egypt Manasseh and Ephraim, whom Asenath, daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bore to him. Benjamin's sons, Bela, Becher, Ashbel, Gera, Naaman, Ahi, Rosh, Mupim, Hupim, and Ard. These were the descendants of Rachel who were born to Jacob, 14 persons in all. Dan's son, Hushim. Naphtali's sons, Jazeel, Guni, Jezer, and Shilem. These were the descendants of Bilhah, whom Laban had given to his daughter Rachel. These she bore to Jacob, 7 persons in all. All the persons belonging to Jacob who came to Egypt, his own issue, aside from the wives of Jacob's sons, all these persons numbered 66, and Joseph's sons who were born to him in Egypt were 2 in number. Thus, the total of Jacob's household who came to Egypt was 70 persons. He had sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph, to point the way before him to Goshen. So when they came to the region of Goshen, Joseph ordered his chariot and went to Goshen to meet his father Israel. He presented himself to him, and embracing him around the neck, he wept on his neck a good while. Then Israel said to Joseph, "Now I can die, having seen for myself that you are still alive." Then Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, "I will go up and tell the news to Pharaoh, and say to him, 'My brothers and my father's household who are in the land of Canaan have come to me. The men are shepherds. They have always been breeders of livestock, and they have brought with them their flocks and herds and all that is theirs. So when Pharaoh summons you and asks, "What is your occupation?" you shall answer, "Your servants have been breeders of livestock from the start until now, both we and our fathers, so that you may stay in the region of Goshen, for all shepherds are abhorrent to the Egyptians. The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of the Lord lives forever." And this is the word of the Lord. All thanks be to God. Finally, Jacob gets to see his son Joseph again. It's been a long haul. It's been a long many years that he hasn't gotten to see his son Joseph. Been a long time. He thought Joseph was dead. Only found out in the last chapter that he could see his son again, and he was off. And that's where we picked up today. Israel, Jacob, Israel, he was off. And that brings us right to one of the first things that I find pretty interesting about this passage, where God called to Israel in a vision by night as Israel was down there in Beersheba offering sacrifices to the Lord. And him offering sacrifices to the Lord takes us back in the story, and we know that it was pretty normal for Jacob or Israel to offer sacrifices to the Lord, and the Lord to come and speak to him right before something big was about to happen. And that's happening here again. Something big is about to happen. God's got a message for Israel, calling out his name. Jacob responds, and God lets him know that it's safe to go down to Egypt, and that God will be with him to go down there. God will be with him when he comes back, and Joseph will be with him on his dying bed. From there, from Beersheba, we know that Israel's son sent him and the children, the wives, in wagons that Pharaoh sent to transport him. So that makes me think that maybe he had walked from Hebron to Beersheba, because here he's clearly getting a ride. And getting a ride on the wagons the rest of the way, and thank goodness, because that is a lot longer way to go from Beersheba to Egypt, the land of Goshen. It's kind of the northern part in the Nile Delta, and that's quite a journey in itself, even riding in the wagons. But he does it without a second thought, because he's ready to see his son Joseph again. From there we get a long list of names. We see more of the genealogy. We see it named of who all Jacob is bringing with him as it comes down to the count at the end. And this is another interesting thing that I find in this passage. It's always fascinating to me how perfect these numbers tend to come out. Do you think that Jacob's family was actually 70 in number? Of course, 70, 7 times 10, 70 is a form of 7, and that helps to make for a perfect number, telling that Jacob's family was perfect in size after all this time, exactly what it was supposed to be as they head into Egypt to go see Joseph. And when you include in that count, you've also got Joseph and his wife. His wife was Egyptian, and his children were half Egyptian. We don't find an issue with the foreign wives and the children of foreign wives as we do in other places in the Bible. So that's another thing I find interesting in this passage. Then in that last part, Israel sends Judah ahead, as Judah has been one who's taken the lead in a lot of ways. Israel sends Judah ahead to Joseph to point the way to Goshen. And they get there. Joseph and Jacob finally meet again. Joseph ordered his chariot and went to Goshen to meet his father, and he presented himself to him. They embraced each other. They wept on each other's necks for a good while. And Israel, Jacob, said to Joseph, "Now I can die, having seen for myself that you are still alive." He'd been stricken by grief for years and years and years, and finally getting to reunite, reconcile, and begin making up for lost time. And then, of course, there is that last part where Joseph preps Pharaoh for the arrival of Jacob and the family, with the explanation to Pharaoh that they are breeders of livestock, that they are shepherds, which, as mentioned at the very end, the Egyptians are not fond of shepherds at this time. It actually says they're abhorrent to the Egyptians, so he's trying to prep Pharaoh for them to receive them, make sure they all answer in the same way, have the same story. and that they are accepted and welcomed into Egypt. So God's voice, where is God speaking to us today? What God calls from us and how God is there for us in these times of need, and particularly before big things are about to happen, where we find Jacob humbling himself before the Lord, giving a sacrifice, and in response to that, God is right there, speaks to Jacob in a vision by night. Whether Jacob was awake at night seeing this or he was dreaming, I tend to think it was a dream, vision by night, when we're usually asleep. And this story has been an awful lot about dreams. I imagine that God had come to him in a dream, but God was right there, responded to him, and gave him the reassurance that God is with him, that God will be with him, and that God will guide him back to where they're supposed to be in these terms of reconciliation. One, that Jacob will be able to die back in his homeland. And two, that Joseph's going to be with him, and Joseph's going to be the one to close his eyes. So one thing I hear God speaking to us about this is, fear not, I am with you. And then another part where I see God speaking to us and God's action in this passage is this reuniting between Jacob and Joseph. It's a God-ordained thing that they find the reconciliation that they yearn for so deeply. And in that, I feel like God is saying something to us about our divisions and us being apart, whether it be something that we've chosen, we've argued about and driven each other apart, or as just victims of circumstance with how Jacob and Joseph got separated. Right now, in these crazy times in the modern world, dealing with the COVID virus, dealing with the economic problems, all this kind of stuff has split families apart, has split churches apart, has split all kinds of people apart. We're not built to be separated and to hate each other or just to not know each other. We're built to be in connection and to be in relationship with each other. So in these crazy times, if anything has driven us apart, perhaps this is a calling from the Lord for us to seek out ways to reunite and reconcile, whether it be us driving each other apart or just victims of circumstance. And then the last part of the passage, maybe one more note about that, our seeking out to reunite and reconcile across space and time. As Joseph prepares Pharaoh for their arrival, Joseph knows that it's not just going to be easy peasy. He knows that it's not just going to be a simple thing for them to all reunite, because he knows shepherds are not all that welcome in Egypt. So he sets up this little plan for them to all be on the same page and for them to be welcomed in so that their reuniting and reconciling can go well. And perhaps that's a calling from the Lord to us, that we might think ahead, because reuniting and reconciling isn't always as easy as it ought to be. Now, from last week, it's my privilege to announce Linda once again as the winner of the picture contest. Yay, Linda! Good job. That picture that you see right here is from the region of Jericho, the city of Jericho. And the question that I left you all with last time is to be thinking about where exactly in the area of Jericho that this picture came from. And so as you continue contemplating on where exactly, what place in that area did this come from, we offer you another picture from that same place. And this is a beautiful picture of Jesus painted on a dome. This is looking straight up from underneath. There is lots of beautiful artwork in this place, lots of beautiful stuff, and this is one of those things that I'm very excited to get to share with you. So please be thinking about where exactly in the area of Jericho this came from, and we'll just leave this question up for a little bit. If we continue to be challenged by this question, there's a lot more pictures from this place that we can show. So thank you all again for being here for another Bible Coffee. It's been an honor and a privilege to spend this time with you and to be blessed by the Lord with you together as we carry on forward in these crazy times that we are in and through these crazy stories that we find in the Bible. So thanks again. Look forward to seeing you next time. God bless you, and may peace be with you.